Hello there, this is Joy of 3D once again. This might be a mini lesson, a smaller class. I'm not sure. I don't really think I can fill a whole hour with what I want to talk about today and showcase. A couple of these early classes don't require that I polish the whole animation to get the point across. So for this lesson, what I want to do is go over the principles of Sakuga animation. That's a little bit misleading because the meaning of Sakuga animation is really just fluid animation. But Sakuga has taken on a sort of connotation of this style where we use a lot of dynamic camera work and a lot of forced perspective. We break the form of the characters to get more expression out of them, etc., etc. So, what I really want to talk about today is how we can use shapes on the screen to guide or almost sort of animate your viewer's eyes. And those shapes could be your character's limbs, or a weapon, or VFX. They could be anything. And this way of thinking is going to come in handy much later when we start building a sequence of shots strung together. So today, what we're going to do is review some common Sakuga animation tricks for guiding your viewer's eyes or attention. And I'll also try to demonstrate real quick how you can break your character's form to create snappier pose transitions. So I have this file open, which is one of the Blender Studio files that has these cute little gnome guys. I don't think I need this guy today. So I'm just going to turn him off or hide him, I guess. What I'm going to do first, a lot of what I'm going to show is I'm just going to be doing it with cubes. Okay, so I'm just going to put a floor out here. I turned on my rule of thirds. That's in the camera settings if you need that. So you just hit the actual camera object and go to viewport display, composition guides, and hit thirds. You can also try out some of these other ones. They're pretty interesting if you want to do like a deep dive into compositional guides. We're just going to take a cube, maybe a couple later. Shut these off for now. So, for example, of like a common Sakuga style shot is you'll see they really like to push perspective. They really like to make nice arcs across screen, and they like to break the form a lot, as I've said. So, if there's like a running shot, you'll usually see a character kind of make this kind of arc as they run. They might even start totally blocking the frame. And if I take this cube, make it a little darker too. Or maybe let's make it red, my favorite color. So we'll see a lot in Sakuga animation, like this use of shapes, and it's sort of more like they care more about the shapes on the screen than the accuracy of the animation. That's not always the case, but that's just sort of how I feel about it. So on this first frame, we might see like a character, like we won't even be able to make out the character. They're completely blocking everything. And then we sort of catch them as they make this run across. into the deeper background. And we also see that they're sort of going from like this third and rounding its way over to touch the other ones. And we might see this like end here. So in this case, like they might even do a Dutch angle from above or something like this, so that the character, while still on the ground, can hit this third. Like this, you know? So when you're doing your block out for like a character running for a shot like this, you would just kind of block them out in these general positions as you go. And then you could even just have the camera sort of, if you wanted to, for a shot like this, you can kind of have the camera react because a lot of Sakuga shots sort of kind of get away with having a blocked off camera because they're more about just having a crazy stuff happening with the shapes in the camera view. That's not to say that's always the case. Again, sometimes the camera will closely follow an object or a character, but it's usually just cuts to a lot of locked off, still cameras that maybe react a little bit. We have like a little bit of camera movement that kind of follows the motion. And we can do this kind of thing for anything. We can let's hide the floor. We can have a shot where we're up in the sky. We're up in the sky or something, and then something kind of descends into the camera and kind of covers the screen. So it's like there's usually a nice arcing motion. It's not always the case, once again. These are just kind of like things that you notice when you watch a lot of Sakuga animation type videos. And then this would cut to another shot. So one thing I wanted to talk about too is the way we're animating the eye between shots. I can go back far enough. I need to animate this again real quick. Something like that, right? So what this does when we're talking about animating our eyes, our viewers' eyes, right, is because this is the most prominent thing on the screen and probably the most colorful too. If it's our character, it's the most like exciting looking part. It catches our gaze, right? It makes us look at it and then we follow it as it moves across the screen. So we're not just animating the character, but we're also deciding where our viewer is going to look when we start using these sort of dynamic motion techniques. And then when we cut to a new shot, right? And this is something that we're going to talk about more in a later lesson. Let's say we keyframe our camera here, and then on the frame after, we would come like around to the other side of the character. What we like to see, and what usually looks pretty good, is that, okay, our character has ended at this third, at the end of this kind of shot. So we can start them where the viewer is already looking, right? And then maybe they run at us and complete this kind of curve. So it's this constant fluid motion of parts. Something like this. It's kind of lazy, but it gets the point across is that when we make this switch, our eye is already over here. So in all this fast motion and like crazy stuff happening, we can still sort of track what's going on. And that's pretty important. But you can kind of apply this thinking to any kind of shot. So if we go back to the like aerial shot, I'm just going to get rid of the floor here and just use one camera kind of locked off this just to show you because we don't need to see the grid here at the moment. We just need to see shapes on the screen. We can have a shot of like a character jumping maybe. Maybe they go here. Maybe we will use the grid actually. Here, what I want to do. We can frame our character and then we have a camera that just follows their jump. Maybe they're jumping like into the distance, or we could do it the other way around if we wanted, where they're jumping sort of like at us, I guess. And see how easy that was too. Like you really feel the energy of this. Even though it's just a cube, right? And a small camera motion, and I really just made one adjustment. Is thinking of using these thirds, these composition guides really make the shots a lot more dynamic. And then when they're up here, what I'm trying to showcase is that we're guiding the eye from here to this side of the screen to here with our motion, and not just to that side of the screen, but through the physical space too, because we understand depth and we understand 3D space. We understand that it's moving closer to. And then when we change shots, ideally, we would maintain our viewer's sightline, maybe something else is happening within these shots, or maybe the character is just kinda slamming down. So, like, maybe the camera would go back to the ground where the character, like, slams or something.